The cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our what's becoming a tradition here at YRL, our afternoon Tuesday webinar session. We still have people logging on, so while we're doing that, I'll introduce myself to anyone who hasn't met me yet. My name is Jessica Knoch, and I am a librarian, Library Development Services librarian at Yellowhead Regional Library. On the line with me, in audio but not visual, is my colleague Lena. Are you there, Lena? You can hear me okay? Great. And Lena will be monitoring the chat and the questions throughout the session, and just jumping in with answers to questions that I might not have the answers to and that kind of thing. So thank you for joining us, Lena. Attendees are still joining us, so while we are doing that, let me just do a quick confirmation. Maybe Lena, can you let me know, can you see my slideshow?
Yes, I can see your slide.
Okay, and obviously you can hear me okay? Just really quickly, everyone, I see the names on here, and I know a lot of you are super used to our webinar software, but if you are new here today, first off, welcome. And you will see, you should see a function on your GoToWebinar platform there for questions. So you can type in questions or comments. That's what Lena will be monitoring. You can chat with the rest of the group there. Lena will be watching that too. Everyone is muted, but if you do have something to say, maybe just pop it into the chat function and we can unmute you and let you have your say. As I'm going through this webinar today, do feel free to ask questions at any time. I did time this session, but I've streamlined it enough that I don't know that we're going to be the full hour, but we'll see here. We are recording this webinar, so Lena has been busy putting together a YouTube channel with all of our webinar recordings. That announcement for that should go out in today's email from Carla. So this recording will be added to that as well. I also popped the PowerPoint slides that I will be using today just in your handout section. So if you want to follow along that way, you're more than welcome to. As well, all of my notes that I have created here that I'll be using to deliver this session, I will be turning into a niche academy tutorial on recommending. So any of the links or any of the examples that I show today, you will have available in a niche academy tutorial at some point. All right, so with that, let's get started. So I think we've done more or less of a welcome, and we still have attendees joining us here. Just really quick, because I don't recognize all of the names here, if you are someone from outside of YRL, feel free to pop that into the chat and say hello to introduce yourself. And of course, all of our wonderful YRL managers and staff, of course, you're welcome to say hi in the chat too. Welcome, everybody. Just a super quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. A really quick introduction to the concept of reader's advisory or recommending. I use those two terms interchangeably. Reader's advisory is kind of the more traditional term in the library literature. Recommending is a term that I started using when I worked for Edmonton Public Library. So I will use those two terms interchangeably. So we'll talk about reader's advisory. We're going to spend quite a bit of our time, the bulk of our time today, talking about methods that we can deliver virtual reader's advisory. So I've scoured some recent articles, looked at a lot of examples, and have quite a few options for you to share your reader's advisory services virtually with your customers. And then the third piece, we're going to go into some of my favorite reader's advisory tools. Those are tools that can actually help you to select appropriate books based on the topics that your customers are interested in. We librarians and library staff, we know our collections really well, but we might We might know about one particular genre a little bit better than the other, and these tools can help us dive into a variety of different genres that we may not be familiar with in order to provide the best possible reader's advisory experience to our customers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, let's dive in. So why reader's advisory? So for those of you like me who have been in libraries for a long time, you will know that the number of reference questions that we actually get at the customer service desk has gone way, way down. Google has become the de facto reference service for most of our customers. But one of the services that we can continue to offer quite successfully at our customer service and reference desks is Reader's Advisory. It's a unique service. It's something that really only qualified and engaged library staff can participate in, and it can be part of the suite of services that you offer on a continuing basis to increase the use of your library and increase the use of your collection. Customers who participate in successful readers advisory conversations and who receive great suggestions, they'll borrow the items in the short term, but they're also more likely to return for more suggestions in the long term, and share the readers advisory service with their friends and family. So it's a great way to ensure returning customers and to get some new customers as well. I think another really key piece of readers advisory that we don't talk a whole lot is staff job satisfaction. We're all readers, whether it be fiction or nonfiction or whatever. We're all readers, and it's a real joy to be able to recommend great materials for their customers. I know I will often, I don't get to do a lot of reference now in my current job, but it was something I really enjoyed doing, and I had a flavor for it. I was browsing in a bookstore back in the pre-COVID days and overheard a young man wanting some advice on which poetry books to purchase for his girlfriend. I think it was as a Christmas gift, and the bookstore staff wasn't doing a super great job, but I dragged him in and found the most romantic books of poetry that he could purchase for his girlfriend, which he did. It was super exciting and super fun. So lots of satisfaction comes in providing great readers advisory. And it increases your collection use beyond your popular bestsellers list. So, you know, you might get customers in looking for, you know, the latest and hottest book, but through readers advisory, you can expand your customers' knowledge of your collection, taking what they might like about those recent bestsellers and finding some materials that might be older or not as well known in your collection and recommend it to them. And I think this is a really key point in today's environment, where we will likely be providing virtual readers advisory to our customers because they won't be able to come in and browse our collection. So we're providing advice to download ebooks, but many of us are moving towards curbside service, where our users are wondering what it is, what can I take out if I can't see the collection? This is your opportunity to help your customers deep dive into some of those items that may not be circulating well, but just because they're not new or fresh or popular, but are still really amazing materials. So really an important service all around in COVID times or not COVID times. Lena, are there any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Okay, that sounds good. So that's just a little bit of an introduction to Reader's Advisory and, you know, kind of what it's all about and why you should do it. So let's dive into the meat of today's presentation. We're going to start by looking at methods to deliver Reader's Advisory. These are all the methods that I'm going to go into in a little bit more detail. We're going to talk about blogs and online newsletters, a variety of different social networking platforms. Some I think are better than others, but I want to introduce them all to you. Your library website is actually an incredible method to deliver RA. Integrating into virtual programming, and finally, personalized lists. We're going to spend the most amount of time on personalized lists because by and large, that's the most popular way to deliver personalized readers advisory to your customers. All right, so let's talk about blogs or online newsletters. So blogs are almost becoming old-fashioned. I can't, an older style of delivering information for sure. But there's still a really great way to promote Reader's Advisory in a more interactive and accessible, and I think most importantly, affordable way. You don't have to do anything super fancy to set up a blog. I'm guessing, Lena, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's likely there is actually, I know we've done this at YRL, there's a way to build in a blog on Sitecore if that was something that you would want to do. Even though your users aren't necessarily going to come to your website to read your blog every week or every month when you post it, you can write that blog post and you can promote it on social media, which will then link your users back to your website to review them. Another hint, if you're not keen on writing a full blog that recommends particular books on a particular topic, would be to make a small Reader's Advisory section in your weekly or your monthly newsletter. So I know lots of you are doing newsletters or contemplating doing newsletters. You could have a small section in there like this month's picks on XYZ topic and recommend materials that way. So I have a couple of examples of current blogs that I want to show you. What I've done for this session is just taken screen captures of all of the examples that I wanted, just so that we can not have to switch you back and forth between my browser and my PowerPoint presentation. So my apologies if some of these pictures aren't super clear. The links will be available for you in the notes if you do want to go back and review them. So the first blog is from Toronto Public Library, and they actually have an online book club that's supported by a blog called The Buzz About Books. And this is just something right on their website. And you can see that there's really fun topics that they've used. 12 digital cookbooks, right? 10 terrific digital comics, 10 books for people who miss sports. So you can see their topics are really current. These are really fun ways to get the users right into topical materials. Within each blog, there are photos, blog posts, there's photos of the books and links right into the Toronto Public Library catalog so that people can borrow those books or put them on hold. I don't think they're doing curbside pickup there yet at Toronto, but people could go in and put a hold on an ebook or that kind of thing. So it's kind of a passive way to do Reader's Advisory. You're certainly not putting together a personalized list for an individual customer, but it's a great way to recommend items within your collection on topics that might be of interest to you. The next one I want to show you is from New York Public Library. Now, New York Public Library, you know, is huge. They have dozens of blogs written by staff that you can subscribe to, but this is one of their Reader's Advisory blogs where they start to list new and noteworthy books. So just another approach to writing blog posts here from the New York Public Library. All right, any questions before we move away from blogs and newsletters?
No questions so far.
All righty. So we're going to switch tactics here and talk a little bit about social networking as a means to provide Reader's Advisory. Lots of it is like the blogs or the newsletter can be passive Reader's Advisory, where it is the staff members pre-selecting books and recommending them. But as you'll see when we get into the examples, there's lots of ways to personalize Reader's Advisory through these social media channels. So really great options for you. I know a lot of you are on Twitter. Most of you are on Facebook, so please, it's just a great ready-made opportunity for you to build in some great Reader's Advisory and interaction with your customers. So let's start with Facebook, which I know you're all familiar with. What I think is so great about Facebook is, of course, most customers are familiar with it, they're comfortable with it. They engage with it. You guys, I know, all watch your likes and your comments, and you comment back on comments. So Facebook's a great way to recommend a book or recommend a list of books or link back to a newsletter that you might have posted or a blog post, and then get people to start talking about it. So you can co-create book lists with your customers. So if you if you create, for example, a blog post, the 10 top digital cookbooks, and you post an article on Facebook about the blog post, you can start to ask questions of your customers like, what cookbooks do you like? What cookbooks would you like to see in the library? And it becomes a conversation that can not only have your readers sort of also provide recommending to other readers, but it helps you fill gaps in the collection if they're starting to recommend materials that they really like that you don't have in your collection. So I have a couple of examples here for you. This was a really neat, very focused one, but I think it's really creative, and this was books for tattoos. This was a couple of years ago from the Denver Public Library, and they had people post photos of their tattoos on Facebook, but I think they used some other social media channels as well. And librarians would go in and make book recommendations based on the style of the tattoo. So I don't think that the service lasted for very long because, as you can see, even just from this photo, there was over 700 comments and 293 shares. Hugely popular. It was really fun to go in and read those comments. The librarians really did. They went in and recommended 1 or 2 books based on the tattoos that they were seeing photos of. So something really interesting. So think about your customer base. Is there something that they all really like, or they're all really doing that they could post a picture of that you can make book recommendations of? Maybe have them post a picture of their pet, and based on their pet, you can find a couple of fun things, right? Or yeah, so some cool ideas there. The next example, this one's not so much recommending, I would say. I'm probably getting out of the theme of recommending a little bit with this, but I thought it was cool and I wanted to share it with you because it's also very current. This is Seattle Public Library, and you might have seen the art challenge where people are recreating famous works of art in their homes using what they have. Same idea, but with books. And here's an example of a little girl who recreated the Charlotte's Web book cover. And used correctly, something like this can turn into a recommending opportunity because, of course, you're recommending books. You can link to the catalog from this Facebook page. And to start a conversation with your users about the different types of books that they like to read. So I thought that was kind of neat. So the next one that I want to talk to you about is Twitter. And like Facebook, it's just a super quick, easy way to engage your readers in a conversation. Lots of libraries, at one point, and as I was reading about this, libraries did have specific readers advisory hashtags. I don't see that as much anymore. More frequently, I see libraries just post questions in their Twitter feed to try and get a conversation going. Things like, "What are you reading this week?" Or, "If there was one book in the library that you'd like to see, what would it be?" Or, "Hey, we're having an author event on this book." So just posting information to get readers talking about particular books. And I do have one Twitter example of readers advisory later on that's tied to a website. So I'll show you that there as an example. YouTube came up as a social net, as a way to provide readers advisory. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. What are libraries actually doing with YouTube? I like to think of YouTube as a place to sort of collate all the videos that we're creating. So I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar here today that Lena has created a section on the YRL's YouTube channel to put all of these webinars for people to view. You could do the same in your library and have really quick, easy book talks. And again, your users aren't likely to go to YouTube to look for your specific YouTube channel. So you need to promote those little videos in other ways. So you host the video on YouTube, it's there in perpetuity, but maybe you post it once or twice a year on your Facebook or your Twitter channels. Here was a kind of a neat example of a YouTube channel that I found. This was from Boise Public Library, and they were little quick 1-minute book talks. So this is a screen capture, of course, I won't play it for you, but it's a super cute book talk for the book Legion, just a little bit of a hook, and a way for a link for a customer to be able to put that particular book on hold in that library. So you can see from the screen capture that this particular Reader's Advisory video only had 76 views. It only had 76 views, so my guess is that this library did not post this video to their social media channels because their views would have gone way, way up, right? So don't think of YouTube as a destination for your customers. Think of it as a place to hold some unique content, for sure. The next social networking site was one I was a little dubious about, and that was Pinterest. But I thought, you know what, I'll go and look and I'll give it a chance and I'll see what's out there. There are some libraries out there who are really using Pinterest to great advantage. So I did want to show you those. And if your library or if your customer base is are heavy Pinterest users, then go ahead and use Pinterest. Again, like YouTube, it's unlikely that your customers are going to go right to Pinterest to look at your Pinterest boards. So you'll need to promote those in other ways by posting them on your blogs or your other social media channels. But they're a really neat way to curate content. So here are a couple of examples here. Cuyahoga County Public Library. But we'll jump to that one. I really loved how organized and clean this particular page was. They pin photos of books on a variety of different topics, and then they actually have 124 boards here. So you know, they're really heavy users, and then they can promote these boards on their social media channels. Within each board, there's photos of the book. There are little write-ups, little 1 or 2 sentence write-ups about why the library likes that particular book, and then a link right to their library catalog so they can put that book on hold. So just a really neat use of Pinterest. Here's another one. I didn't write down what library this was from, but this was really neat. Books into Movies. So just pins of movies with a book tie-in, and then a link right into the library's catalog so that the person or the customer can put that book on hold. So just some neat opportunities if you are a staff member or and especially your customers are Pinterest users. Okay, so the next method of doing some Reader's Advisory that can be passive, I suppose, but still, you know, there's still ways to engage, and that's doing Reader's Advisory through your website, and that's actually posting content on your website for your libraries to discover books beyond your library catalog, beyond the carousels of new materials that come on your website. There's other content that you can post on your website. So of course, this is going to require a little bit of knowledge of Sitecore. If that's, I know most of you are using websites for libraries and Sitecore. It requires a little bit of knowledge of Sitecore in order to add some of this content there, but it is possible, absolutely is possible. And so if you're keen on something like this, definitely get in touch with AskYRL at yrl.ab.ca to ask about how you might be able to incorporate some of the examples that I'm going to show you in just a minute. What I really like is, you know, your website is a place that customers are going to come. It's a destination, right? Maybe unlike your YouTube channel or unlike your Pinterest boards, your website is a destination because that's where your customers are going to be accessing your library catalog, right? And so why not find some other content that you can put on there in order to engage your users in the materials that are in your catalog? Really simple things that you can do, really simple things right off the bat. Make sure that if you are doing Reader's Advisory, that it's promoted somewhere on your main page. Make sure if you're a YRL member, you know that we will be adding chat for those of you who want it. So make sure your chat function is front and center so that people know and that people know they can ask for book recommendations through your chat service, your help service, your phone numbers. Just make sure that people know that you can provide Reader's Advisory right on that main page. That's the simplest thing that you can do. And then there's other content that you can add to your website to entice your readers and engage your readers in materials. So I have quite a few examples here. Found some really neat things that I want to show you. We're going to start here with a library close to home, Bonnyville Municipal Library, and they did something really simple. They, under their services, they simply listed a few websites, all really great quality websites. Some of them here I'll even be talking about later on in the presentation, that users can go to find their next great read. Simple, it's passive, but you are ensuring that your customers have opportunities to be able to go and look for additional books. So this next example here is from Sudbury Libraries in Sudbury, Ontario, and they did something very similar to Bonnyville here. They just popped in lists of bestsellers, lists of award winners, just some websites that their customers could go to find out kind of what's new and hot, or what you could recommend. So another passive way of providing some reader's advisory. This particular one here, I couldn't get the full screenshot in, but this is from a library in Colorado, and I'll provide you with the link so you can explore this. I loved this. So what they do is they provide a photo of each librarian that works within, or library staff member that works within the system. They have a quick little overview of what genre expertise that library staff member has, and then an email link to email that person for recommendations. So I'm guessing that behind the scenes, the administrators of this service have put together some, like a format for each of those librarians to use to make this quick and easy. Like maybe they're only recommending 2 or 3 books, and this is the format that they're delivered. This is an email template that you could use. So just things to make that kind of work and that amount of email that might be coming in a little bit more quick and easy. But I just loved how personal this was, because it links people right to the staff of that library. And again, something like this would be maybe not easy, but definitely doable in terms of design on a Sitecore website. Here's another example of staff picks that's a little bit more passive, probably a little bit easier to pull together, because you're not emailing staff members. What they've done here is they've provided a photo of each staff member. This is Southborough Library, and it's an American library. Just a photo of each staff member. No names are attached to it. So if that's something that's privacy of your staff is important to you, this is an example of one that uses no names. And as you click on each picture of each library staff member reading a book, it takes you right to their library catalog so that you can see the book. Here, I'll just wiggle my mouse here over this. I think it's, it's The Home for Peculiar Children. I can't remember the full title. A very good book. I've read the whole series. I love it. And I can't remember the title right now, but it just links right to the catalog so the user can put a hold on it themselves. So kind of a fun, more passive way to provide some reader's advisory that's still highly personalized, and it connects your customers to the staff in the library. Here's another one. This is Dallas Public Library, and it's their service called DPL What's Next. So I mentioned before an example of a personalized recommending service integrated with Twitter. This is it. So they use the DPL What's Next hashtag and encourage anyone who's received recommending services to give a shout out to the recommending service in some way using that particular hashtag. So they use Twitter as a way to promote the service, but the service itself is actually right on the library's home webpage, again with photos of library staff members, their areas of expertise, and that they could recommend, and then a link to email that particular staff member. And again, I'm guessing there's going to be some sort of behind the scenes administration to make the recommending process and the workflow for each of those staff members simple and easy. Okay, so before I jump away from social media or websites, are there any questions, Lena? Anything that's come up at all?
Yeah, 2 things. I don't know if everybody can see it, but I posted in the chat the link to our YouTube playlist with the
Great,
2 videos so far. If you can't see that, let me know and I'll message it to chat for everyone. We did have a question. It says, our YouTube channel continues to have low views despite the fact that we post on other social media channels. It is still new, but do you have any tips?
Yeah. So it's likely that, like, if you're posting those videos on other social media channels, you might want to watch the views that you're getting on that social media channel. So if you're posting the video on Facebook, for example, watch your views there, and look for clues as to why you might not be getting a lot of views right on Facebook. I'm using that as an example. Maybe you don't have enough followers to see that video in the first place. Maybe that you need some hashtags to make it more enticing. Maybe the video needs to be really short. I know personally, I'm not super interested in watching something that's longer than a minute or two if I'm just scrolling through my Facebook feed. So watch the length of your video as well. Lena, do you have any recommendations as well?
I did respond to this question, and I said much the same as you. I myself am not sure if when somebody views your YouTube video just on their Facebook and doesn't click through to YouTube on it, if it's only counted in Facebook or if it's also counted in YouTube. So it might be better to go with the YouTube stats for, or not the YouTube, sorry, the Facebook stats for who's viewed that post.
That's a really good point, Lena. Yeah. That stat will be counted as a Facebook view, but not as a YouTube view.
Yeah. Other than that, we just had a suggestion from the audience that there are some good librarian podcasts out there. New York Public Library has a good one. So thanks for that.
Oh gosh. There are so many amazing like I'll just cover barely scratch the surface in some of my recommendations for where you can go to find out about great books, but that student is absolutely right. There's just, you type in the word Reader's Advisory into Google and you get your first couple pages of really high quality resources, blogs and podcasts and individual librarians with websites and libraries. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump into another method to integrate some Reader's Advisory, and that's integrating it into your virtual programming. Now, that's not to say you can't integrate it into your programming as well. And if you're bringing books into story time for people to sign out, or if you are tying a program to a particular book in your face-to-face programs, and you're already doing Reader's Advisory, because this is a webinar about virtual programming, or sorry, virtual Reader's Advisory, I want to talk about virtual programming. The big one, of course, are virtual book clubs, and I'll have some good examples of that as well. You know, lots of libraries are moving towards virtual book clubs in a variety of different formats, and so that's a really great way to start recommending books in maybe the same genre or the same feel as the book that your book club is looking at. One book, one community programs. So if you're able to get access to an ebook that everyone can read at the same time, it's a great way to promote your collection. And bring your own
pop
book.
in when you're done.
Oh,
yeah. In terms of one book collections, right now we have purchased a license for a one book collection on Overdrive.
I have that as an example.
Oh,
yeah.
I will. Here, I'll let you continue. I will.
No, that's absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We got you covered, everyone, in terms of the one book collections for sure. So the bring your own book clubs are kind of neat because people can just come in with whatever book it is that they're reading and talk about it, and it's just an opportunity to share, share with other passionate readers what it is you're reading. And so it's a neat way to do some Reader's Advisory because you're actually getting your customers involved in recommending materials too. And so I do have some examples of virtual programs here. So the first, of course, is what Lena had mentioned. In track, if you are in one of the track regions, if you're joining us from one of the track regions, we now have access to Moon of the Crusted Snow by Canadian author Wabgashi Rice. I apologize for my pronunciation. I need to look that up. And this is available without any holds, no lineups, no waiting. Great for book clubs who want to all be able to read the same ebook at the same time and discuss. This was an example in a write-up of EPL's current Bring Your Own Book, BYOB book club. Just a way for readers to connect about books, and really super easy virtual program to put together. Edmonton Public Library used Zoom in order to do it. We've talked quite a bit with you about the use of Zoom. We of course recommend that you have your users sign up for these programs and then you send them the Zoom link rather than just posting the Zoom link right on your website or whatnot. And that way you can just have a little bit more control over who has access to your Zoom accounts. So kind of a neat way to do that. And from Brooklyn Public Library, another BYOB book club here. They just do a video conference call. They also use Zoom. Zoom is really popular because if you can't afford a subscription, you can still host a Zoom meeting for up to 40 minutes and up to a certain amount of people. So it's a very cost-effective way to deliver programming. That's why you see Zoom so much. So another example of virtual programming that really ties into with recommending. I love the BYOB clubs because recommending is it's baked right into the program, right? Users are coming with a wide variety of books, interests, topics that they can talk to other users about. Okay. Any questions or comments that have come up, Lena?
Nothing so far.
Okay. So we're going to dive next into probably the most effective and popular way of providing virtual readers advisory. I have lots to say on this topic here, and that's providing readers advisory through personalized lists. What you will see by and large are on many library websites who are offering this service are web-based questionnaires that collect information about a reader's likes and dislikes so that staff members can then go in and prepare personalized lists for that particular customer. The forms themselves, we will have a chance to look at them. There's a lot of details that you can actually put on a form. You can ask them if they're interested in fiction or nonfiction, or if they want a combination of both. You could ask them who their favorite authors are. You could ask them to list several titles of books or authors that they have liked and conversely that they have disliked, to give you just to give you a flavor of what it is that they want. You could ask them what the most important focus of the book is for you. Is character development important to them, or issues, or actions, or relationships? Your form could ask them which genres or subjects they prefer, and you could list some examples of genres for your readers to list off. You could indicate any preferences that your reader indicate any preferences that they may have. They may have a preference about the gender of the lead character, the length, the pacing. They may have opinions about the level of language, the sexual themes, or the violence in the book, and you'll want to get a flavor for that. And the format, of course. Maybe they want an actual book that's in their hand, right? And again, I know our libraries aren't open, but many of us are looking at curbside delivery and ways to get books into users' hands. So you definitely want that as a format. Maybe they want large print, maybe they want ebook or an audiobook or a combination, right? These are all questions that you will want to ask your user in some sort of web-based form. And you might want to ask them how they'd like to get their completed list. Do they want an email? Do they want it sent by mail? They want in-library pickup? These kinds of things, those kinds of questions, it's going to depend on how you're running your curbside service and how you're actually going to deliver those books to the customer. So you'll want to think that through in your web form as well. And of course, you're going to want to know the customer's full name and their library card and their phone number and email address so that you can sign those materials out to them if they are coming for curbside pickup to get them, and email and phone so that you can interact with them if you have any questions of them. There's a couple of other things that you will want to think about with your web forms. And the first, these would be more procedural based things that you want to do behind the scenes to make sure that your staff aren't feeling overwhelmed by too many requests coming in. And so the quality is, that's a quality of service delivered to each customer is consistent no matter who it is, no matter what staff member is delivering that service. So you're going to want to think about your turnaround time. How quickly do you want to get a list of books to your customer? And turnaround time is going to depend on factors such as how many staff you have in your library who can work on this, what other big projects you have going on. I think it's perfectly acceptable to have a turnaround time of a week, sometimes even more depending. This is a personalized service after all, and so your customers need to give you some time to pull something like that together. You definitely don't want to have only one person in your library do this. Just like in any kind of library operations, you don't want to have just one person for all tech questions or one person for all fantasy questions. You want all your staff who provide customer service to have, you know, some general knowledge about all topics. Same with Reader's Advisory. Don't just try and do it all yourself or assign it to one staff member only. I know that's obviously tricky if you're a one staff member show, but if you are if you do have the benefit of having some additional staff members, get everyone involved in it, because going back to my very earlier comments, it's about staff satisfaction, right? Staff enjoy doing this, so allow everyone to have an opportunity to do it. You'll want to think about how many times a person can submit a form. You may have some power users who will resubmit and resubmit, so you might want to limit the number of times that a person could submit a form on a month-to-month basis or something like that. You'll want to think about what you want to include in the list. So aside from your list of recommended titles, do you want a brief description of the book? Do you want a description about why you selected it for that customer? Do you want a photo of the book? All of those things take time to build in. I have a really great solution for that, and I'm going to talk to you about that when I show you the examples in just a minute. But you do want to have some sort of consistency in what's included in the list, and put together a template that you can use over and over again to make sure that everyone's getting a very consistent experience when they are receiving their electronic recommendations. And you also will want to include some sort of statement of, you know, while you're doing your best to make appropriate reading selections for your users based on the information that they provide. There's no guarantee that they're going to love the book, right? You know, I've been surprised over the years at how many people have come back or given my library a bad review because I've recommended a book that they didn't like, right? Like, so just have some sort of statement in there about, you know, we're doing the best we can, and there's no guarantee you're going to love this book. You're going to want to think about how many recommendations you want on each list. So do you want to just recommend 2, 5, 10? Pick a number and make it consistent amongst your staff. Okay, so sorry, and a couple other things to think about. Now, I know not all of your customers are web savvy. They might not want to use a web form. So make a phone-in recommending service available as well. So all of these types of questions or things to think about that I've mentioned are just as easily communicated through a phone conversation as they are via a web form. So do make phone Reader's Advisory available. All right, so on to the examples. So the first one is Seattle Public Library, and they have a really fun, I think well-branded Reader's Advisory called Your Next 5 Books. So right away, you're limited, you're limited to just 5 books. And it is just a basic web form that users fill out, answering many of the questions that I have just discussed. Their group of librarians or library staff go in and just select 5 recommendations based on what the user has asked for, and it's sent off. But I love the next 5 books. I love the next 5 books label, so I included that in here. This one here, I learned about this in a webinar about Reader's Advisory that I watched in preparation for this webinar here today. This is from a tiny little library, Weymouth, Massachusetts. I never would have stumbled across this in Google if I hadn't watched the webinar. And what they're doing here, they have it branded as Book Match, personalized reading recommendations from real life librarians. Nothing new or amazing about this service. It's again just a web template. People fill it out, they find a couple of books. But what I thought was really cool about this, and they didn't provide a screen capture for this on their webinar, so I don't have one to share with you, but I did want to tell you about it. They create the recommended reading list of, I think, 5 titles in the Library Aware tool. So hopefully all of you know about what Library Aware is. We did a webinar on it a few weeks ago. It is a tool that's provided, I think all track libraries have it, but YRL provides Library Aware. I think it's through TAL actually. So we license it through TAL. And it's basically graphic design for librarians, and you can create newsletters. And what this library has done is created a customized newsletter just sent to one person. Library Aware is amazing in that you can very easily integrate book covers and book descriptions. So a ton of work is done right there. They have a template. They include 5 book covers, the 5 book descriptions that are pre-populated in Library Aware. Send that off, and it's a super professional looking newsletter that or email that goes out to that customer with their personalized recommendations that they can then borrow from the library. So that's Book Match, part of B. This example here, again, a very simple web form from a library in BC, but it's geared towards kids and teens. So you can have very demographic specific recommending if you want. This one here, it's nothing fancy to look at, but I wanted to include it. This is St. Albert Public Library's recommending service. I wanted to include it because of how they've created their form. You might be wondering, oh my gosh, how do I create a form and get that up on my website? Again, yeah, you're going to need a little bit of technical expertise for this, but what they've done is they've created a form in Google Forms, one of the simplest, it's free form softwares that are available out there. And so as their users click on kids, teen, or adult book lists, it takes them to the Google form. They fill out that form. The form has questions on it. It's very similar to what we've talked about already. The Google form is completed and it's sent to their generic kind of reference email so that they do the work then to do the personalized lists for the customer that's requested it. So very simple, very easy form. And it's just as simple as putting a link on their website, which is the easiest way to do that in the website for libraries as well. So I wanted to point that out to you, that creating a form doesn't have to be scary or onerous. It's definitely doable. And this one here, I wanted to highlight. This is Westwood, Massachusetts, and I can't remember how I stumbled across this, but I love it because on this page and in all of their social media around this service, they have branded it as a subscription service. So people are always so excited about getting their subscription boxes of makeup or clothes or pottery or wine or whatever in the mail. This is a subscription service. You pick up your subscription at the library. In order to make it special, they'll only give you your subscription once a month, and they pack it in a really fun branded cloth library bag. So I thought that was really neat. Again, very simple web form with questions. It goes to the library staff, they fill it out, but then the library staff take the extra step of actually pulling those books from the shelves, putting it into a nice little bag, making it look really special, maybe putting a bookmark or whatever in it, and delivering it to that customer when they come to pick it up. So for those of you who are thinking about combining some reader's advisory with curbside service, this is a really neat example. Okay, so for the last couple minutes here, I'm just going to quickly go through some of the reader's advisory tools that are available to you. Before I do that, Lena, were there any questions or comments?
Just a comment, this person said that if they run out of time on free Zoom, they end that session and start another in 10 to 15 minutes and they build it in as a break for the program.
Oh, okay. So you can just do like back-to-back Zooms if you want to go over 40 minutes. That's really good to know.
Other than that, no questions.
Okay. If you're thinking about doing a lot of virtual programming, though, just as an aside, look at a subscription to Zoom for your library, even for the interim while we're closed. It's not very expensive, and having the extra functionality that a Zoom subscription can bring might be worth it to you. So just something to think about. Okay. So let's dive into some readers advisory tools. So as Lena has mentioned, with a comment and our student in the comments, there are so many readers advisory tools available to us as library staff. Really, so many amazing book lists out there, tools out there. So I've just taken a smattering of some of my favorites. If you have others, please put them into the comments or the questions so that we are aware of them too. With that, let's dive in. So the first is actually a database that we subscribe to. If you are a WIRA library, you automatically have access to this through your e-resources. Your customers have access to this too, but a great tool for you and your staff to know about and use, and that's Novelist. Novelist is a subscription-based recommending service where you can type in things about what you like in a book, and it will spit back a few recommendations for you. So we have Novelist Plus and then Novelist Plus for K-8 for children and youth recommending. So if you have not played around with this database before, please do so, and it should be your first stop when you're trying to decide on your recommendations that you're going to make to your customer. This one here I just learned about actually as I was doing my research for this webinar, and that's Kitchen Sink Reader's Advisory. And I thought this one was kind of fun. They provide a list of genre tags that you can use to search for specific genres. And then within those tags, if you find a book that a person has already read, you look at the tags for read-alikes is basically what you do. So it's like a tagging system to help you decide what books might be similar to books that your user has already read. This isn't a super great screenshot, so I apologize for it. I didn't get a chance to go in and create an account and sign up. But this is a really neat website that I learned about through my children's teachers. It's called What Should I Read Next? And it is a really simple search feature where you just type in a few keywords about what it is that you like, and again, it will spit back some recommendations for you. Which book is kind of neat. It uses descriptor sets to help zero in on books that you like. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen capture here, you can use like a Likert scale to kind of determine what it is that you like about a book. Deeper in, you can dive into specific genres. So really, it's a great book for customers, of course, but also for library staff who are trying to decide what to recommend for their users to read. This is genre specific. Again, there's lots of, this is romance. There's lots of romance recommending websites out there. This was one of the most robust and comprehensive ones that I had found, all about romance, where you can go in and use descriptors to zero in on romance novels that people might like to read. And similarly here, Christian fiction writers. So lots of requests for fiction, Christian fiction. If you aren't familiar with that genre, a tool like the Fiction Finder here can help you zero in on specific Christian fiction novels. One other genre that I know can be intimidating for library staff to make recommendations are science fiction and fantasy. Often we have one science fiction or fantasy enthusiast on staff, and that person gets all the questions, right? And I mean, that's something we want to avoid. We want to all be able to recommend as part of our customer service offerings. I couldn't find a really great exclusive science fiction recommending website for this. So if you know of one, let me know. But I do know that broader sites like Witchbooks or Novelists will, they're big enough that you will be able to find and zero in on science fiction. The other thing that I found in researching for this is there's lots of really great science fiction book blogs, podcasts, top 10 lists that are out there for you to help decide, you know, which science fiction or fantasy items to recommend to your customers. So that is it from me. Look at that, with 5 minutes to spare. Lena, were there any questions that had come up?
No questions.
Okay. Well, I hope you guys found this useful and got your wheels turning about how to, maybe some options for your community on how to make recommending services front and center, especially during the times that we're closed, because this is a great opportunity to highlight your collection. Certainly your customers are welcome to call your library to place requests for specific titles, but this is your opportunity to recommend other titles and actually pull them for your customers to read if you're involved in some or thinking about some kind of curbside pickup. So the other thing I wanted to mention is much of what we talked about is completely applicable once we're back to normal open times. The questions that a web form would ask are the same that you would ask at the reference or customer service desk. So much of this is transferable to open times as well. So I hope you guys found this useful. I'd love to see and hear how you grow your Reader's Advisory services. As I mentioned, I'll be putting all of my notes into a Niche Academy webinar for you, so you can have this as an opportunity to review the content, but also use it as training for new staff members that might come in if you want to get them trained up on Reader's Advisory. And at the end here, there will be a little feedback form, so do please leave your feedback about this webinar so that we can grow from here. Join us next week. Lena will be the key presenter. I'll be her backup. And Lena is going to be talking about developing your community profiles. So really, really rich and useful stuff there for sure. So please join us for next week. And we will see you hopefully at Coffee Chat Thursday at 1:30. Goodbye, everyone.